Thanks for coming. As you can see by the screen, again, I'm Paul Krofssik with Digital Watchdog, and we are going to talk about our G4 new IP NDAA TAA approved recorder. A little higher performance than our other unit, smaller form factor. We've tried to better, stronger, faster, but a little smaller too. So just to keep it in mind that number one, of course, NDAA TAA compliant. The NVRs are an ONVIF compliant, and most DW products qualify for GSA schedule and government opportunities because of the NDAA compliance. So keep that in mind. So these are standalone plug-and-play systems. You can go up to 16 PoE ports. You can have 4K cameras put on them. You have 4, 8, and 16 PoE channel options. And then you can expand it so the 4 can be a 9 by just plugging in another PoE switch. The 8 can be a 12, and the 16 is a 16. One of the things I wanted to note is the units are PoE Plus Class 4, so it's 30 watts per port. So they should be able to handle most cameras. I would say if it's a PTZ or a big multi-imager camera, by all means, use a PoE injector. Our cameras that are multi-imager PTZs, we ship with a PoE injector. By all means, do that. But most of the other stuff, they might be like pushing 32 watts or something like that. So the 4-channel unit, the rear of it, it's got the 4 PoE ports. Again, you can plug in another PoE switch to it and expand that up to 9. So again, one of these things where someone's purchased a 4-channel system for you and they want that 5th camera. You don't have to try to bring it back to the distributor or negotiate returning it or any of that other stuff. You plug another PoE switch into it and you can add that 5th or 6th camera, no problem. 8 is the same way. The 8 is the 12, and as you can see, they all have alarm ins and outs. They even have legacy RS-485 built into them, 1-channel audio in and out, and then the 16-channel unit, same way, 16 PoE ports, LAN, your HDMI port, which will give you your 4K output, and a VGA port. So you can still have 2 monitors on it. They will be duplicated, but still you'll have the ability to have a second monitor on there for just another room or something like that. You can run something too. And of course, your alarm IO on here. So we pride ourselves on the complete installation and setup and camera configuration in a couple of minutes. There's an optional little checkbox in there so you can activate our CCIP encryption. So if someone somehow plugs a laptop, let's say, into the one of the PoE ports and is trying to view what's on the camera, all they'll get is a white screen, even if they know the IP addresses and the passwords to the camera, because that's actually encrypting the video, camera to server. And we also have HTTP certificates and other stuff to secure the client to server setup. We also have our DW Witness product, which we'll talk about in a few. The system also has a function called Snapshot Notify. So if a camera goes out or you just want to see the status of a system, it can send on a schedule email with snapshots in it. There's all kinds of other things, including a PoE system analysis, which we'll talk about, and compatible with our DW Spot products. So one of the features in here before we get to the analytics is the fact we have this status menu, which will tell you how many megabits the cameras are pulling, how much wattage they're pulling, is it connected to the internet, how many people are connected to it, their direct RTSP connections, your gateway, what you're actually sending out to the internet. So this is all on there. If you get an orange view, it still may show 8 megabits on one of these, but it may be either a power problem or a connection problem. They keep going in and out or something like that. So keep that in mind. We also have this functionality in there. Let's get started on getting your G4 and AI camera working. So have a Windows computer ready, whether a laptop or a desktop. Obviously, a laptop is more portable. It should have an Ethernet port on it or a little USB to Ethernet port. The G4, plug the cameras into it. Install the Digital Watchdog IP Finder on that computer. Our latest version is always on our website. You can just search for IP Finder or go to the web page of one of the cameras and then run the IP Finder. I'm going to show you a screen in a second. The default IP scheme out of the back of the G4 is 10.0.0.xxx, whatever you want those last 253 IP addresses to be. This will be a good way to run setup. So you got the cameras plugged in, they're all on the display, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And now you're going to want to program the AI. So you go in here, and again, this is plugged into one of our G4s. So I actually went and did this, and we're using on the Ethernet side 192.0.0.14, but by default it's the 10.0.0.xxx. What the G4 does when it sets up the camera and assigns it, now this is a digital watchdog camera, it will go in and change the password. It changes the password to exclamation point, capital A, and then the system MAC address. Okay, so if you have to access the camera, I think on the bottom of the unit will be the system MAC address. Also, though, if you log in, there's a system page that describes what each of the network interfaces does. So it actually secures the camera. And as you can see, when I zoom in on this, because there's a lot of information here, we've got our different cameras. Also, if you notice, the cameras that are our analytic cameras are X cameras. So we have XSB, which is a bullet, Dome, XSB, there's another bullet down there, and so on. So this way you can identify them easily, saying, oh, I plugged camera 1 and 2. You know, they're going to go outside and do my video analytics. They're going to be, you know, I can identify them easily on here, or I can identify them by the IP address. Usually port number 1 comes in at 10, 0.10, you know, 0.11, 12, 14, and so on. So keep that in mind. Again, you can make that whatever you want in the G4. So you can say, I don't want to start with 10 dot whatever, I want it to start with 192 or 12 or 15 or whatever. There's a whole list of other things you can change that default IP scheme to. Chrome or Edge will work fine when you actually go to the camera. So this is what the setup looks like. The initial setup looks like. We have motion turned on the camera, which again doesn't matter. Alarm input, relay out. If it has audio, that stuff will be lit up. And then one of the things you want to do, of course, get the camera pointed the right way. Zoom it out or zoom it in to where you want it to be viewing. Hit the calibrate button once, and that just will zoom the lens in and out and get a feel for the area. And the camera, as soon as you plug it in, is actually learning the scene. So it learns the scene, and you can go in and, you know, make changes to it. So this one is H.265, 15 frames a second. It's a 4K camera. You can dumb it down if you wish. The settings you're going to change in the NVR if you want to change this stuff, and not at the camera, because the NVR will just change it back. And then you're going to click MEGApix AI, which has the rules, the counters, information we're actually going to show you. The first thing I'm going to show you, though, is the burn-in annotation. So before we actually jump in rules, we're going to decide what's going to display on the screen and where it's going to display. So I'm having it go on the mainstream and display like the lines and the zones, which we'll show you in a second. Display the objects. Don't really want object ID on there. You can turn on object confidence, just gives you more stuff. Now, this is good for setup. After this, you can turn this all off, or you can leave display event message on there and maybe display only alarmed objects, turn it on, but that would be it. The rest I would just turn off. You know, now if you have a counter on there, then that's different. You're going to want it to sit there and count for you. You go into the camera, you first set it up, you do the burn-in annotation so you get the right information on the screen. And then you go back out to the camera, because you're going to want to adjust your camera's, you know, brightness, contrast, all this stuff, which we talked about in there. And that's image adjust. And I'm just going to pause it real quick because I kind of do this stuff fast. So you can adjust the brightness, contrast, sharpness. You can turn on the wide dynamic range, which is all these cameras have true wide dynamic range in them. You know, adjust the exposure so it's maybe top off the max gain. This one's probably running a little hot, though the white's a little blown out on it. If you notice the yellow down here, these are solid yellow, but the tops look a little white because of the bright sun, because we live in Florida. And you can go through and turn on these different items, adjust your maximum gain, which is what I'm doing here. And you don't have to press apply or anything. It automatically does it. And then you can go to the next camera and make an adjustment on that one. You see how it's loading. And then you can say is WDR. This one happens to have WDR on. I wouldn't turn WDR on a camera that's just outside unless it was outside looking in a building, like a garage door, but usually inside out. All right. But you just what you want to do is make these adjustments because you want to optimize for lighting. Okay. Because the better the lighting is, the more accurate it'll be. Okay. You're still, if it's in low light, which I'll show you in a few, same accuracy, but because it's able to adjust itself, do different things inside the camera automatically to make it do it. The next setting I'm going to show you is actually inside the recorder. Okay, so those of you who are familiar with our G4, bring up the setup screen on the G4, you go to record and record scheduling. And then what you want to do is use the settings that have sensor attached to them. So I always like the continuous plus. So continuous plus, you can actually go as low as 1 frame a second if you want, but you can go continuous plus sensor. So the continuous record is a low res stream. So it's going to record the empty parking lot and the blank carpeting and empty chairs and all that stuff. And then when there's activity, but the activity will be based on the analytics from the camera. Okay, so continuous plus sensor, this brown, will be recording continuously at low res, but then if there's a car, a person, a truck, or whatever, or there's an event, which we'll talk about shortly, it'll record. Okay, or you can have it do motion plus sensor, so you could have it record on motion and record on objects. I like the continuous only because that person sees the unbroken bar and they say something happened at 2 a.m. and you say, nope, I can play back 2 a.m. There was nothing going on here, So it uses up a little more hard drive space, but it's worth it to have that unbroken bar. But you use sensor in here. So continuous plus sensor, sensor record, motion plus sensor. All right. And then you can limit it down to 1 frame a second. I would leave it at the default. I think it defaults to 7 frames a second on the second stream. I actually like to make it a little higher. The sensor, when you do sensor, is the metadata from the camera. So it's the analytics from the camera, again, just to keep that. And then over here is a view, the unit itself. Okay, so this is camera 1, POE 1 on it. And you can see there's some suspicious person walking by. And as they walk by, you notice there are 2 boxes with the same number in it. One is generated from the camera and one is generated from NVR. And so you just turn one off. That's that information you did with the burn in annotation. You turn it off from the camera. The NVR will have it. I have them both on for setup, just in case I'm using the web browser to set up instead of the NVR, but I like the way to see how it looks through the NVR. And so I cross this line here, and you say people line cross. So I got a line cross going all the way across the street. All right, and it's designed only to react on people and not vehicles. So we'll just let this play out. There's this suspicious looking character here wandering around. And so it shows it on here, it shows reacts properly. And again, all the work is being done by the camera. Okay. So you're not taxing the recorder or anything. The camera's doing the analytic work. Now we go over here, we can see what this also looks like in the app. So this is the Mobile Plus app. All right. And so you got me wandering around here. I've got it zoomed in over here, but this is the full app. It's kind of hard to show. And again, I walk by, it says people line cross, and so on. So that's what it looks like in the app. And then here's what it looks like in the C3 software at night. So again, the same thing. You get people line cross. You're getting the boxes. You're getting the vehicles go by. The vehicles don't trigger the red line. Only this one does. This is a tailgate line, this black one. Okay, and this one is for trucks only. Okay, so bigger vehicles. So they have different line crosses set up. And so what you can do with this is tailor it to it. And you can have more than one analytic running in the camera at the same time. So you can have a line cross for people, a line cross for vehicles, or a line cross for many different things. Okay, or loitering, and we'll go through the list of the different algorithms in the camera. So here's what notifications look like. So this is, again, a dark view. Paul's walking by here. And now, so this is the notification from the app. Okay. And so it'll come as a notification. You can click on it and it will bring you back in playback, or you can do a pull down later and play it back. So that's how it works from the app. This version of the app, this is the iOS version, has not quite been released from the Apple Store. Apple's been taking a lot longer approving stuff. Hopefully we'll have it out shortly. But right now, if you downloaded the app, you don't get push notifications, but shortly you'll be able to go in, and there's a button here. Let me see if I can go back and show you. You click these 3 buttons here, and it'll say push notifications, and you can set up for push notifications. There'll be push notifications. There's one for capture, so you can capture a screenshot, relayouts, and controls like that. But that's where the setup for push notifications is. And then it registers it at the unit itself. Also, in the unit itself, I'm just going to pause it here, is the playback section. And you can go in here and just choose a day and play back your line cross events or your different events in the camera. So that's the unit itself. You can see, and it reacts to the events. It'll make a sound. It'll trigger a relay, do whatever you want to do from the analytics of the camera. One of the ways you set up is, now this is deep in the, actually change the record streams here, but also it says IVA event. Okay. And that's where you do the analytic setup. So you go in here. So this camera is set for 25 frames a second on the main stream, 15 frames a second on the second stream. Now, if you're doing video analytics, the more frames you have, the more accurate it's going to be. So if you can, if you're normally, I'm setting things for 10 frames a second, set them for 15. It's going to be more accurate. And I know we've got 4K cameras here, so make sure you're using the H.265 profile. Okay. And then the second stream, we can make a little lower resolution than this. I like a little higher resolution, and you can have that one at, 10 or so frames a second. So let's go through, and then this shows you where to change it. You can change the codec. You can actually change the resolution of the first stream, but you're buying a 4K camera, you might as well use a 4K camera. You've got your target bit rate, quality, group of pictures, which profile you're going to use. These other things you can, again, it's controlled by the NVR. You don't really have to do too much here if you just want to tweak it, So I want to use, raise the quality just a little bit, which will eventually raise the target bit rate. Or I want to lower the resolution because I'm doing something else, So you can go through all these and change the different ones any way you want to. So quality or frame rate, and then variable bit rate versus constant bit rate. And then same thing as the second stream. We go to IVA event, and I'm just going to pause it here. This shows you, okay, if you want the information around the object. So I want to show object area, object trail, which means it's how it's moving. I'll actually see a little line behind it. Object ID to me is optional. And then I like seeing the rule area, but it, can clutter the display. So again, you could have just the object area on and be fine. And then the rest of the time, you don't see the lines or the boxes on the screen or whatever. So then go in, and then this is the manager. So again, I'm going to pause this. So here's where you go in and say, I've got a line crossing in the camera. You give it the name. If you've named it properly in there, like people cross, let's just say, or whatever, and then you put the name in here and then line crossing, you'll then be able to set, we'll just let it go over here. It goes through all of them. Logic rules, different filters. If you've got people tracking, which will be on some new product we have with PTZ cameras. Here we go. I'm going to pause it here. So then you choose the channel, and then how you want it to notify it. You might have it trigger a relay. Again, these NVRs now are kind of packed away somewhere, so they're not always used. but you can have it email or mobile notify. Mobile notify, is one that people have been requesting. Like I said, we're just waiting for that new app to come out. And you click mobile notify and it will come like I showed you on there for that one rule. So we'll go here, you choose the channel it's on, you click apply, save it, and now that channel is saved with that configuration. It will react to those analytic events as instructed. So this is the next one where I had to just overwrite the existing channel because I created it, and then it will disconnect and reconnect momentarily. And you can see the truck moving through the scene. Again, this is channel 2. We're doing the same thing. We're going to set up different rules for different channels on the system. Now, this is how it appears in playback. So if you're logged in with the C3 software or the on the unit itself, you've got this color-coded thing with the continuous record and then the brownish color, which is your events. All right. So I didn't want to go into super detail on which menus to go through. We have a lot of those instructions on our website, but I wanted to show you guys where it is, how the analytic cameras function with the G4, and that now we also have with the G4 a really cool extra software. We don't do a lot of webinars with G4, so I want to make sure I brought this up. We have this witness app, which turns your phone into a part of the video surveillance system. It's a free app, doesn't cost any licensing fees or anything, and you can go there and it pops on and it'll work remotely. It works with our DDNS and other services, and you can go in and click, and the camera is live on the system here. And you can record stuff going on where maybe you don't have a camera behind a building. There's a whole bunch of garbage and the camera just doesn't quite look over there. You can at least record, the area you can't have. And then, it's not in the phone. It's actually in the recorded to the server, and it will include the audio. So don't use any bad language while you're there. And then these are the different options, up to 32 terabytes of storage for the 16 and the 12. I'm sure, hard drive, we've tested a lot of drives, and I know we're working on I think there's the 20 terabyte drives that are available, stuff like that. We have to do some long-term testing before we can say they'll work with it. So conceivably, these could be 40 terabyte at some point in the future. Now let's talk about the cameras themselves. So these are our deep learning cameras that are doing it here. So we're not doing motion-based analytics. So this is deep learning analytics, and you need a powerful processing in the camera to do it, because what they're doing is they're analyzing, unless you tell it not to, because there's non-detect zones you can put in, but it's analyzing the whole scene all the time and then comparing it to known information that it has baked into the camera. You don't have to be connected to the internet for these things to work. All right. So baked in, are thousands of poses of human beings and different vehicles, trucks, cars, vans, bicycles. It identifies forklifts. All kinds of stuff can be identified with the cameras. Now we have a bunch of different models. We've got a bullet, low profile camera, a dual sensor camera, works just fine with the G4, takes up 2 spots. You plug a dual sensor camera, it's going to take up, let's just say you plugged it into 1, it's going to take up 1 and 2. Okay. Dual camera. We have, and we haven't tested it yet. We also have the ANPR bullet and the ANPR make model color camera. Those I think are going to be more Spectrum centric, only because Spectrum has the really good database you can go search through and stuff like that. We're going to have a Vandelball release with white light, flashing light, blue light, red light, so you can do different alerts directly on the camera. Wide angle bullet, and as I said, we're releasing a 3 megapixel and a 4K PTZ, which are going to have some more advanced analytics, and they can take advantage of the PTZ itself. easy setup, very little calibration, literally no calibration on your end. The camera just does it for you. It has built-in object classifications for, like I said, trucks, cars. It'll track them, doing it, and we're doing it all by using a US-made Umbrella chipset, CV22, which does a lot of image processing and handle 30 frames a second at 4K. It can then pass that off to different algorithms inside the camera itself. So the different analytics you have built into the camera, so again, we don't have to worry about so much about the recorder, is logical rules, which are multiple cameras, okay, at one time. I'm sorry, multiple rules at one time, multiple cameras, multiple rules at one time. So you can have, a line cross and a loitering put on there. And you have counting, detection zones, intrusion, tailgating. So again, two cars or two people, too close together. So you can do in conjunction with like an access control system. So you have an alert from the video system and maybe you have alert from the access control system, and you can compare them. Line cross, also camera tampering with it. And we have just a bunch of different configurations, and we're adding more all the time. That's what the dual sensor looks like. And then we're releasing a version of the 4K bullet that has the deep learning AI in it. We have the cameras with white light LEDs in it, so you can just get better directly out of the camera. The sensor in it is a little different. It's back illuminated sensor, so it actually improves its low light performance. And then our white light camera actually sends out 3,300 Kelvin. It's a warm light, so it actually works better under different situations and different lighting than if we just had a straight, more on the blue spectrum white light camera. Another product we release is the height strip camera. So this is a camera. This is a height strip with our 5 megapixel camera built into it. You measure, you put the thing in, measure to 5 feet from the ground or wherever you want to measure it from, and fits most standard door frames. 5-year warranty. It's our usual NDAA compliant product. Has a 3.7, 2.5 aperture lens in it. Class 2. So again, plug it into your G4. It can handle class 3. This is a class 2 product. And again, it's one of those things that we've been asked about for a long time, and released it out. Tons of features in this. Again, 5 megapixel has our Starlight Plus for lower light situations. It's a true wide dynamic range, and of course H.265. It has the highly visible color-coded height levels in feet, and we are going to have a updated version which will also have the metric on it, so keep that in mind. 3D noise reduction, so again, works great in low light. Allows you to capture eye level views of people. It's got an adjustable lens in it, so you can get it swung into the door very well. And that's what I got for you right now.